You'll be fine going to the hospital alone, right? I swear I'll send you straight to hell. My name is Lisa, and I'm currently 9 months pregnant. It's my first time giving birth, so while I'm filled with anxiety, I also feel truly blessed about welcoming a new member into our family. My husband, David, is a white-collar worker and has weekends off. However, he doesn't offer much support around the house or help with shopping. This is because he usually goes back to his parents' home on weekends. David has a deep bond with his parents, and since their home is nearby, he spends almost every weekend there, without any specific reason. Since becoming pregnant, I've been cautious about lifting heavy objects. For instance, when buying heavy items like rice, understanding friends often help out. My daily routine starts by waking up early, preparing breakfast for David, and seeing him off to work. Afterward, I do the cleaning and laundry, then head out for any necessary shopping. Once I return home, I start prepping for dinner. Only after finishing these tasks can I finally have some relaxation time. Since taking maternity leave, I've taken up a new hobby: blogging. Every day, I write a diary accompanied by photos I take. Meals, the blue sky, flowers blooming in the garden, and more. Many friends and acquaintances leave comments, and these moments of journaling have become small daily joys for me. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, my husband returned home as usual. He carelessly placed his bag and jacket on the sofa, and I tidied them up, hanging them on a coat hanger. "Welcome back. I made hamburgers for dinner. I'm going to take a bath," he said curtly, heading straight for the bathroom. 3 years have passed since we got married, and there has been little kindness or consideration from him. I occasionally wonder if this is truly what a marital relationship should be like, but I've resigned myself to it. When David returned in his pajamas, I handed him a drink. "Where's the beer?" he asked, glancing at the bar. Sorry, I forgot to buy it today. I'll get some tomorrow." "Seriously? Go to the convenience store now." His demeanor changed immediately, and he spoke with evident anger. I was irritated. Why was he asking his pregnant wife to do this? If you want it so badly, why don't you go get it yourself? It's hard for me to move around with this big belly. At that moment, he became even angrier and started shouting, "You're the one who forgot to buy it. It's your job to fix that mistake. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you get special treatment." My mother always said it's important to keep moving for the sake of health. Knowing that he doesn't calm down easily when he's angry, I reluctantly decided to go to the convenience store. Once I arrived, I bumped into Sarah, a neighbor. "Oh, Sarah, good evening." "Good evening, Lisa. Did you forget to buy something too?" "I ran out of sauce, so I came here." Sarah's cheerful voice slightly lifted my spirits. My husband really wanted beer, and he told me to buy it. Why didn't he just go himself? That's what I said, but it didn't get through to him. "It sounds like you're having a tough time, Lisa." After walking together for a bit, Sarah and I parted ways at a crossroad. When I returned home, David was lounging on the sofa watching TV, having not even cleaned up after dinner. "Why did it take you so long? What were you dawdling around for? Give me the beer." David's disgruntled voice and insensitive remarks made my heart ache. However, I handed him the beer without a word and began cleaning up after the meal. How could he say such things to me, especially when I'm pregnant? I felt the urge to retort, but I didn't want another shouting match, so I remained silent. Afterward, I had my dinner, took a relaxing bath, and headed to the bedroom. The next morning, David acted as if nothing had happened. It seems he's the type to forget everything after a good night's sleep. However, I couldn't forget his words from the previous night, and I consciously ignored him. "Why are you making that face so early in the morning? Don't take it out on me. I'm heading to work now, so be a bit considerate, you know? The importance of appreciation, right?" Due to what he said, I was filled with the urge to retort, "That applies to you, doesn't it?" But out of shock and disbelief, all I could do was sigh deeply and see him off. "Be careful," I said. "Right. I want dinner tonight. See you." Without any explanation, David left in a hurry. After seeing him off, I took care of household chores and went shopping as usual. However, since David mentioned he wouldn't be having dinner, I decided to prepare something simple just for myself. Then, as I was about to start my meal alone in the evening, I heard David's unexpected return and rushed to the entrance. "I'm back. Thanks for your hard work. But you said you didn't need dinner today, right?" "Yeah, but my drinking party got cancelled. I'm hungry." "You have something to eat, right?" "Well, I only prepared a meal for myself today." Upon hearing this, David's face contorted with anger. "Didn't you even consider the possibility I might come back? This is unbelievable." Saying that, he moved to the dining table, and upon seeing the dinner I prepared, his mood worsened. "What do you call this, a meal? I seriously question if you're properly doing your duties as a housewife. Don't waste the money I'm working for." I quickly prepared something for myself. "Please don't get mad like this. Maybe you should learn proper cooking from my mom. Honestly, I've always found your cooking lacking." Again, he always compares me to his mother. Doesn't he realize how hurtful those comparisons can be? "I can't eat this. Go buy something." Hearing this, my heart sank further. What does he think of me? It's already night and I've taken a bath. Can't you go buy it yourself? Forget it. You forgot to buy beer yesterday and didn't prepare dinner today. It's so frustrating. I'm going back to my parents' place. David stormed out and left. Alone in the house, I strangely felt a sense of relief. I sat alone in the quiet house, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. The night felt heavy, pressing against the windows. I ran a hand over my stomach and whispered softly, "It's just you and me now, little one." The baby kicked gently, as if responding. That small movement gave me the strength to get through another lonely night. The next morning, I woke to an empty bed and an even emptier heart. David hadn't returned. There was no text, no call, nothing. I decided to focus on preparing for the baby's arrival instead. I packed my hospital bag, folded the tiny clothes I'd washed the day before, and tried to remind myself that this was supposed to be a happy time. That afternoon, a sharp pain ripped through my abdomen. I gasped, clutching my belly. No, not yet. The pain came again, stronger this time. My water broke. Panic flooded me. I grabbed my phone and called David. He answered on the third ring. "Yeah. David, my water just broke. I need you to come home right now." There was a pause. Then his voice, flat, indifferent. "I'm at my parents' house. Can't you call a cab or something? My mom says first labors take hours." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "David, please. I can't go alone." "I'll come later," he interrupted. "Don't overreact." The line went dead. Tears blurred my vision. My hands trembled as I called Sarah instead. Within minutes, she was at my door, helping me into her car and rushing me to the hospital. By the time we arrived, the contractions were unbearable. The nurses whisked me into a room, checking my vitals, preparing me for delivery. "Is your husband coming?" one of them asked kindly. I swallowed hard. "He said he will. But he didn't." Hours passed. The pain came in waves, sharp and consuming, until the room spun and I couldn't think of anything but breathing, pushing, surviving. And then finally a cry. A perfect, fragile sound that shattered the silence. "It's a girl," the nurse said softly, placing her in my arms. I stared at her tiny face, at the delicate fingers curling around mine. All the pain, the fear, the loneliness, everything faded in that moment. "Hello, my beautiful girl," I whispered, tears streaming down my cheeks. I named her Emma. It wasn't until the next morning that David finally arrived. He walked in with a forced smile and a convenience store bouquet in hand. "So, you did it," he said awkwardly. I looked up from my hospital bed, exhausted and numb. "You weren't there." He shrugged. "I told you I'd come later. Mom didn't think it was urgent. Besides, you had the nurses, right?" I stared at him in disbelief. "You left me to give birth alone, David. Instead of an apology, he sighed. You're being dramatic. Let's not start a fight. It's not good for the baby. For the first time, something inside me broke. Not from pain, not from labor, but from clarity. The man standing in front of me wasn't a husband. He wasn't a partner. He was a stranger. The day we brought Emma home, the house felt colder than I remembered. David walked ahead, carrying the baby carrier like it was a grocery bag he hadn't wanted to pick up. He barely looked at her. I tried to stay calm, telling myself maybe he just needed time. Maybe he was scared. Maybe everything would change once he held her properly. Didn't. Days passed, then weeks, and David drifted further away. He spent more time on his phone than with his daughter. He'd leave early, come home late, and claim he was working extra hours. One evening, while rocking Emma to sleep, I found his phone buzzing on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. Had a great time last night, Red Heart. Can't wait to see you again. My heart sank. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages, each one confirming what I already knew deep down. While I'd been in the hospital, while I'd been recovering, while I'd been learning to hold our baby and hold myself together, he'd been with someone else. When he walked in later that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table, the phone in front of me. He froze. You went through my phone. You were cheating on me while I was in labor, I said quietly. He rolled his eyes. Oh, come on, Lisa. Don't make this bigger than it is. Bigger than it is. My voice trembled. You left me alone to give birth to our daughter. You abandoned us. And then you. He slammed his hand on the counter. Enough. I can't deal with your constant drama. You wanted this baby, not me. The words hung in the air like smoke. Emma whimpered from the other room. I stood there for a long moment, every part of me shaking, not from fear, but from realization. He wasn't going to change. He wasn't going to love her the way she deserved. Or me. I walked past him into Emma's room. She was still awake, tiny fingers reaching up toward me. I lifted her gently, pressed my cheek against her soft hair, and whispered, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I'd packed a single suitcase. Diapers, formula, a few clothes, and the hospital bracelet I hadn't taken off yet. When David came downstairs, he looked at the bags by the door and laughed bitterly. "So what, you're leaving?" "Yes," I said simply. "Where are you even going to go?" "Anywhere but here." He smirked. "You think you can make it on your own with a newborn? Don't be ridiculous." I met his eyes, calm, steady, no longer afraid. "I already have," I said. "You just never noticed." And with that I walked out the door. The next few months were the hardest of my life, and somehow the best. I moved into a small apartment above a bakery. Smelled like fresh bread in the mornings, like hope. Sarah came by every few days to help with Emma. Sometimes we'd just sit on the couch, coffee in hand, watching her sleep. "You're stronger than you think," she told me one night. Smiled. Maybe. Or maybe I just didn't have a choice. But deep down I knew it was more than that. I'd finally chosen myself. I started working again, freelance consulting from home. Slowly, things began to fall into place. Emma grew stronger and so did I. Every milestone, her first smile, her first laugh, her first time saying "Mama," felt like a victory. Not because they were big moments, but because I'd made it there to see them. One morning, as sunlight poured through the window, I picked up Emma and said softly, "Everything's going to be okay, sweetheart. We made it." And for the first time I truly believed it. Epilogue, 2 years later. The cafe was warm, the hum of quiet conversations blending with the hiss of the espresso machine. I sat by the window, typing on my laptop while Emma colored beside me. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Lisa, it's David. I heard you started your own firm. Congratulations. I was wondering if we could talk, just to see Emma. Please." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, without anger or sadness, I typed back. "Emma deserves stability. If you're ready to be consistent and kind, we can talk." But I won't let you hurt her again. I hit send, closed my laptop and turned to Emma. She looked up, grinning. Mommy, look. I made a flower. Smiled. It's beautiful. As she held up her drawing, sunlight spilled over her curls, and for the first time in years, my chest felt light. I wasn't the same woman who'd once begged for love from people incapable of giving it. I was stronger, clearer, and finally at peace. Emma giggled, and I leaned down, kissing her forehead. We're going to be just fine, I whispered. And I knew we would. While my father looked teary-eyed, my mother consoled him, saying, the postpartum period can be exhausting. Witnessing this heartwarming scene, a smile formed on my face. How's the baby? I inquired. My parents informed me that the baby was undergoing some tests but would be back in the room soon. However, I noticed that Sarah wasn't present. Responding to my unspoken question, my mother remarked, Sarah left a little while ago. Thinking about how things might have turned out if Sarah hadn't been there, a deep feeling of gratitude settled over me. I made a promise to my parents that after being discharged, I would visit Sarah to express my thanks. Turning on my smartphone to inform my friends about the birth, I was met with an overwhelming number of missed calls, mostly from David. The sheer number left me momentarily stunned, but I felt no hope or expectation from his calls, so I closed the notifications without hesitation. One of my friends visited the hospital to congratulate me on the birth. As she rejoiced and extended her genuine wishes, I opened up about the recent incidents with David. After hearing the story, she expressed both shock and anger, half-jokingly saying she'd like to punish him a bit. But she also emphasized that my health and rest were paramount. After chatting with me for a while, she left. My parents, already briefed by Sarah about the whole episode, asked, "What are you planning to do next?" I shared my thoughts about my relationship with David and told them, I'm considering divorce. They respected my decision and offered their full support. Upon my discharge, I planned to stay at my parents' house, where they had already prepared a room for me. Meanwhile, David seemed to have visited the hospital, but as I had informed the staff that I didn't wish to see him, he wasn't allowed in. The next day, Sarah came to my hospital room holding a fruit basket. "Sarah, you came," I exclaimed with delight. "You seem to be recovering well," she said kindly. "But remember not to overexert yourself. Postpartum fatigue can be quite profound." Feeling comforted by Sarah's words, I sighed with relief and took the fruit basket from her. "Sarah, thank you so much for helping me. I don't know what would have happened if you weren't there," I said, bowing deeply. Sarah gently laughed. "What's most important is that both you and the baby are healthy. I just want a small hand in that." "Regardless," I replied, "I'm forever grateful. Once things settle down, I'll come over to thank you properly." Sarah laughed warmly in response. I talked to my husband about what happened. He seemed quite furious." From her words, I could somewhat deduce David's situation. "Sarah, I'm truly sorry for dragging you into this mess," I admitted. "Don't worry. Remember who you owe for being able to work at your current company." For the first time, I heard a stern tone in Sarah's voice. Sarah was actually the wife of the CEO at the company where my husband worked. When we first moved into this neighborhood, I had no idea about this fact. However, as we frequently encountered each other at the supermarket and local shops, and occasionally at convenience stores, we gradually became close. We even began enjoying tea together, and during those sessions, I learned about her husband's position. My husband, however, was completely unaware of this background, since he hadn't even accompanied me for our initial neighborhood greetings and avoided socializing altogether. Sarah had once told me gently, "I don't want to cause any trouble, so don't tell your husband." And I had respected that request. Knowing that I was pregnant yet still being forced to endure David's unreasonable behavior, Sarah had often suggested, "Should I talk to my husband about this?" But I always declined, not wanting to trouble her. With this recent incident, though, perhaps even Sarah had reached her limit. "Sarah, I really can't thank you enough for everything," I said sincerely. Her strong words made me realize how fortunate I was to have someone who'd go to such lengths for me. I couldn't help but tear up. Seeing my reaction, Sarah smiled warmly. "Lisa, you're a dear friend to me. I can't just stand by and watch when something like this happens to a friend." Our conversation was filled with heartfelt smiles. However, my husband's messages didn't stop. Despite the barrage of notifications, I consciously ignored them all. Thinking about the divorce made my mind clear. All I wanted was to focus on building a life with my baby. As I was preparing to leave the hospital, a close friend visited and handed me her smartphone. "I want you to see this," she said. Displayed on her phone was a post that had gone viral on social media. When I asked what it was about, she explained that she had posted about my husband's actions online. My friend had a significant following, and one of her followers had, by chance, captured a video of the scene where David yelled at me after forcing me out of the car. Out of respect for my privacy, the follower blurred my face and, with my friend's permission, shared the video online. The video spread like wildfire. As a result, my husband, and even his company, were soon identified and flooded with criticism. "I had no idea it had escalated to this level," I murmured. My friend smiled gently. "Well, they brought it upon themselves, didn't they?" When one of David's colleagues confronted him, he reportedly tried to excuse himself by saying, "I had a prior travel commitment with my parents that day, so I had no choice." Because of that statement, not only David but also his parents began to face online backlash. The story spread even around their neighborhood, and various rumors circulated about his family. Suddenly, my phone began ringing. It was my mother-in-law. My friend glanced at the screen and said teasingly, "Why don't you pick up and give her a piece of your mind?" But I was too fed up. I had no words left and decided to ignore it. Before I knew it, my missed calls log was filled with names. My husband, father-in-law, and mother-in-law. Ever since the incident became public, even the hospital staff seemed aware of my situation and offered their quiet support. Whether my husband or in-laws came to visit, they weren't allowed to see me. As my discharge date approached, one worry lingered. What if my husband and in-laws were waiting outside? My parents reassured me, saying, "You have nothing to worry about." But the thought of my baby's safety left me uneasy. That concern was quickly dispelled. On the day of my discharge, as my parents helped me with my belongings, I suddenly heard David's voice shouting, "Lisa!" followed by his parents' angry calls. Before I could react, several men in black suits surrounded me protectively. One of them approached and said gently, "Don't worry. We're here on Sir's request to protect you." It turned out Sarah's husband had arranged everything. My mother smiled and said, "Didn't I tell you there's nothing to worry about?" Relieved, I got into the car as the men blocked David and his parents, who stood frozen in place, unable to come any closer. I couldn't find the words to express how grateful I was for Sarah's support. My parents echoed my thoughts, saying, "We have to find a way to thank Sarah properly." Although my new life began peacefully, the calls from my husband and in-laws never ceased. I mailed the divorce papers, but there was no response. One day my in-laws called our home. My father answered. They said arrogantly, "She became a part of our family, so no matter how she's treated, she shouldn't complain." My father, furious, retorted, and they quickly hung up. After discussing it with my parents, I decided the best course of action was to consult a lawyer. Coincidentally, my father knew one personally, and after explaining the situation, the lawyer agreed to help. I told him about the viral video and all that had happened. When he contacted David, my husband was initially stunned but soon became defiant. "We'll solve marital issues ourselves. We don't need a lawyer," he argued flatly. The lawyer calmly replied, "I'm acting on Lisa's behalf. Any further communication should go through me." Faced with the prospect of court, David reluctantly agreed to the divorce. "I have no interest in the child and no intention of seeing them again. So why should I pay child support? I did nothing wrong," he said irrationally. The lawyer remained calm but firm. When David resisted, The lawyer simply replied, "In that case, we'll meet in court." Hearing the word court, my in-laws panicked and quickly urged him to settle. Later, the lawyer informed me that David wanted to apologize in person. Wanting closure, I agreed to a supervised phone call. The day arrived. My parents and the lawyer sat beside me. On the other end, David began. "Finally, you answered. Apologize now, and I'll forgive you. Come back home. The house is a mess, I might lose my job, and everyone's judging me. This is all your fault. So take responsibility." I stayed calm. When he continued taunting me, saying, "See, you can't even reply properly. Truly a woman with no redeeming qualities," finally spoke. "Just so you know, this conversation is being recorded. I'll keep it as evidence. Goodbye." "Wait, you recorded it? That's not fair." "I was joking. I'm sorry. I can't live without you. Let's start over," he shouted frantically. I ended the call. Handing the recording to my lawyer, I asked, "Can you use this as evidence?" He sighed and shook his head in disbelief. He truly is an incorrigible man. My parents agreed, feeling more astonished and disappointed than angry. At some point I realized something unexpected. I was actually enjoying my newfound strength. The divorce was finalized smoothly. Property division and child support were settled without issue, and peace returned to my life. Due to the influence of Sarah's husband, the CEO, David was promptly dismissed from his job. Known for his family-oriented values, the CEO declared that a man who can't protect his family can't be trusted by his company. David lost his job, defaulted on his housing loan, and returned to live with his parents. His reputation was ruined by the viral video, and he struggled with odd jobs to survive. His parents, too, became social outcasts in their neighborhood, a fate harsher than any legal punishment. With most matters settled and my health restored, my parents, my baby, and I visited Sarah's home to express our gratitude. Sarah and her husband were overjoyed to see us and doted on the baby, making us feel warmly welcomed. After that, Sarah and my mother became close friends, and our families grew increasingly connected. Surprisingly, Sarah's son, around my age, and I began to develop a bond of our own. A few years later, as life gently wove our stories together, I found myself smiling at the thought that I might truly become a part of Sarah's family. Life, I realized, has its own mysterious way of turning heartbreak into hope. And as I looked at my daughter laughing in the sunlight, I knew one thing for sure. We were finally safe. We were finally free. And we were finally happy,